What up? This is Jeff with Final Boss. We are going to be doing the writing tip of the day, which is a good one. I like this one a lot. When writing a novel in third person, be sure not to just use your description as a camera. You have a license to step out into the greater realms of the world and story, or dig into the vulnerable inner thoughts of the character. Use it. So yes, I think one of the traps so many prose writers fall into is they only use a few of their tools, and a lot of those, because we are very influenced by film and television, and maybe if you're a writer who maybe started in film and television, started writing screenplays, you know that some of your biggest tools are action and dialogue. But that's one of the beauties, and I think one of the reasons the novel has been around for so long is that that's not your only tool. Novels can use summary, which I guess in TVs would be something like voiceover. Novels can also use interiority, which is kind of the reporting of the thoughts. And if you're noticing yourself as a writer unintentionally limiting yourself to just having your action and dialogue, and not going into thoughts, not going into emotions, not going into like that stomach turning feelings that your characters might be having, you're going to be leaving a lot of opportunity on the table. And I find this with a lot of new writers, because I do edit a lot of people's work, and I find that this is a very, very common challenge. So I think one of the things that is really, really helpful here is reading. First off, reading, especially some some people who are doing a lot more interior thought. I think Virginia Woolf is a really great example, and learning the techniques that she is using. So, for example, Virginia Woolf, when she wants to get into a character's interior thought, she'll start with something that happens in the scene. She'll start with an event, and then the character will have a physical reaction to it. So, like, let's say, an event is, Sarah watched Joe, take all the ice cream from the ice cream shelf and run out of the convenience store. There's going to be the physical reaction. She stood back in shock, her eyes wide. There's going to be the emotional reaction. She glanced around. Was someone going to get mad at her? Was she going to get in trouble? And then there'll be the thought, the interior thought reaction was she knew Joe had this ice cream kleptomania, and she needed to be really careful about it, and she should have known better than to take him in here. And then they'll step back out into the scene by having another scene event action, or having the character take an action or another event happen in the scene, where she's like, she rushes to the person at the front counter. I'm so sorry. I brought in, and then we get to action and dialogue. I brought a person in with this ice cream kleptomania condition. I'm so sorry. And then it can go from there. But that's a very silly improvised example. Thanks for the follow. But yeah, it's a very silly improvised example. But those are some of the tools I think that you have at your disposal as a writer. You don't just have to, especially as a novel writer, when you're writing prose, you don't just have to be action and dialogue. You don't have to have action, dialogue. You can use that as a launching point into the mind, or you can use it as a launching point out into summary. And at the end of a scene, just have a character, instead of having every moment of them walking across the desert, just say, hey, they walked across the desert. Boom, let's go on to the next thing that happens. And so I think that's one of the really, really great gifts you have in prose, as well as stuff like poetic language, and we can talk about all that stuff sometime soon. But be sure to use that. I hope this is a helpful kind of rundown on what this writing tip it's that way. This writing tip means. And as always, join us on stream if you have any other questions. Best of luck and happy writing.